do you think your scientific experience puts you on the question in general of transhumanism, gene editing, things like that?
Well, look, I think I think the promise is there. I think that the potential of using these techniques for alleviating human suffering is enormous. What I would say is that we have to be very clear about the safety and the effectiveness before we can responsibly move forward with doing those kinds of things. So I also think we need to be very clear about the difference between somatic gene editing and germline gene editing. In other words, if you make a change to your skin cells or your liver cells or your brain cells, those aren't going to be inherited by your children. But if you change the DNA of the cells that make sperm and egg, those are the germline cells. Those are inherited by your children, and so that's a big difference. It's one thing for an adult to understand risk and take on that risk knowingly. It is very different for an individual to make a change that will then be inherited by every subsequent generation. And so I think we need to, as a society, have discussions about what is okay and what is not okay. And so to me, I think we have to really get into the ethics of gene editing, as well as understanding the biology, the science.
Yeah. What do you think is going to get us to a good place on the ethics of this? I have spoken with the biographers of James Watson and Francis Crick. Mm-hmm. And with both of them, who are also PhD scientists in their own right, we're still very much up in the air. So what do you think it takes to really get to a sense of where we go with this technology?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to know more about our own genes and genomes, right? So part of the problem is we're still learning basic things like what gene has what function. And then it's not as simple as like we used to think like, oh, this gene does this one thing and that's all it does. No, most genes interact with other genes. And so if you change one thing, it has all of these multiplicative effects. So without understanding that, and you just go in and you tamper with something, it's really likely that you're going to have some negative unintended consequences. So for me, it's first of all about having enough knowledge of how our genomes are set up, how they function, to really be able to kind of even have a chance of understanding what all of those downstream consequences are. If we knew what those consequences were, if we had imagine we had this complete knowledge of exactly all of the functions of every part of our DNA, and we understood exactly what making those changes would do, then I think we could talk, about like, okay, is it okay to make this change? What are the trade-offs, right? Okay, you get this benefit, but it's at the expense of something else. Those are, conversations that we could have, but doing that without, having that information just strikes me as irresponsible. So I think that's where we're at right now, is being able to just really have enough knowledge of what all these functions are before, certainly before doing any sort of germline gene editing that would have implications for future generations.
Yeah.